On this edition of Southern Newsweek, Dunedinites stand united with Ukraine in a candlelit vigil. Protesters close down a Southland coal mine, chaining themselves to machinery. And Midwinter Carnival organisers are making some major changes. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Hannah Wilkins. Luke James Lambert has been jailed for 13 years on 4 counts of attempted murder following an horrific incident almost a year ago. In December 2021, Lambert pleaded guilty to a frenzied attack at Dunedin's Central Countdown, an event which has left victims still experiencing the side effects of significant trauma.
Convicted of 4 counts of attempted murder following a stabbing at Dunedin's Central Countdown store last May, 43-year-old Luke James Lambert has been sentenced to more than a decade behind bars.
On each of the 4 charges of attempted murder, you're sentenced to 13 years imprisonment. You'll serve each of those sentences concurrently. I impose a minimum period of imprisonment of 6.5 years imprisonment.
During the sentencing in the High Court at Dunedin, Justice Jonathan Eaton said the offending was violence on a scale rarely seen in New Zealand. Outside court, one of the 4 survivors of the attack, Jorge Venuzaleda, says although many of the physical scars are healing, the trauma remains ever present.
I've been like this for a year and still suffering from what happened that day. And a year in time is nothing. It stays with you. It's with you all the time. It's with you at night, in the day. You toss and turn. You wake up yelling. You throw your arms out. You're fighting someone at night that you don't know who it is.
Venuzaleda paid tribute to his wife, Vanessa Miller Andrews, for saving his life. She too was severely injured by Lambert.
And if my wife hadn't intervened, the attacker from, stabbing me, I would be dead. So she's my hero. She's my hero because if she hadn't intervened, I would be dead.
In the aftermath of the attack, Lambert claimed witches had told him to make a bloodbath, later saying he couldn't remember his actions. The judge said he didn't believe Lambert had grasped the impact of his actions, which influenced the length of Lambert's non-parole period.
I sense you are yet to truly appreciate the harm that you have caused. You are yet to demonstrate remorse. I consider a minimum period of imprisonment of 50% or 6.5 years as appropriate.
Justice Eaton said it wasn't possible to make a clear finding as to why Luke Lambert did what he did a year ago. An attack which left survivors still recovering 12 months down the track. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A candlelit vigil was held recently in Dunedin's Octagon as a way of standing with the people of Ukraine. Organisers say they're grateful for the support shown by the people of Dunedin.
A lone cellist adds to the sombre mood of last night's candlelit vigil for Ukraine in Dunedin's Octagon. More than 100 people gathered to reflect on the Russian invasion and its toll on the people of Ukraine.
They need food. They have COVID. They've lost loved ones. They've lost everything. And they're very proud, resilient people.
Candles symbolised a flicker of hope for those impacted by the ongoing war. Organiser Olha Vyazhenko says she's grateful for the support the people of Dunedin have been showing towards Ukraine.
It was wonderful. It was really amazing. So, this spirit of so people were, I think, really connected in their feeling for Ukraine and support, and I'm really grateful for Dunedin people who came today.
Many of those attending the evening vigil are hopeful Ukraine will repel the invading Russian forces. Vyazhenko is trying to remain positive and look to the future, with the hope family members currently in Ukraine will one day be able to visit Dunedin.
We are waiting for that moment when we will be able to bring our moms here. Really, I want to show moms this wonderful city and wonderful country, and we want them to be with us. So yeah, we're waiting for that.
It's been more than 60 days since Russia invaded its western neighbour. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A Southland coal mine was shut down by environmental activists who say it's time for the country to quit coal. Police were monitoring the situation and at least one protester locked themselves to machinery to make a point.
The Takitimu coal mine at Nightcaps in Southland has had its operations stopped by about 30 environmental activists who began setting up camp in the very early hours. Protester Michael Apathy attached himself to a coal conveyor belt this morning but expects to be removed.
Yeah, and police have come and visited me and they've said that they will hacksaw off the railing that I'm at to remove me. They've arrested me for trespass. Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. That was part of the plan, really.
Extinction Rebellion are behind the action and says protesters have provisions to last several days. As well as a person locked to the coal conveyor belt, there are 2 other people also dressed in cow onesies who are suspended from an industrial structure at the site.
I reckon we got here at 4 o'clock and spent about an hour rigging all the ropes. So we've been here since probably 5 in the morning.
It's about 7 hours at the moment.
Yep.
Doing well, yeah. It's quite nice up here in the sun. Got lots of food.
Local man Graham Lumsden is annoyed by the activists, says none of them are from around the area and is disappointed police wouldn't let him talk to the group.
It's crazy. The protest is crazy. These people, none of them are from around this area. None of them are affiliated to this area. They're getting paid to hold up progress. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Lumsden says the mine's parent company Bathurst does a lot of good for the local community.
Bathurst is very important to the community. They're very involved with the community. You just have to ask around. They're involved with lots of things, yes. Sports, funding, fire brigades, everything.
The majority of the coal mine at Takitimu is used by Fonterra to dehydrate milk for export at the Clandeboine factory. The reason why many of the protesters are dressed in cow pattern onesies. And while they're dressed in a light-hearted way, they say the matter is serious.
This coal mine is expanding and right at the point where we shouldn't be looking into more coal energy. We should be looking at more renewable resources in this climate crisis, and nothing's really being done about that.
Greenpeace supports this action and says emissions from the coal mine at Takitimu are equivalent to the emissions from 110 million cars. In Southland, the South Today.
Major changes are planned for this year's Dunedin Midwinter Carnival, including a move away from the Octagon. The popular annual festival is set to become a ticketed event, taking place beside First Church on Moray Place.
Checking out this year's performance space, acrobats and performers practice a few moves on the grounds of Dunedin's First Church. The area surrounding the church will be turned into a magical wonderland for this year's Midwinter Carnival in early July as part of a range of changes. Last year's event attracted about 25,000 people to the Octagon, but festival chairman Paul Smith says admission this year will be by ticket only.
We were forced to change our plans because of COVID regulations, and we needed to have the option of controlling entry. And so this site gives us that option.
For the first time in its 25 years, entry to the main part of the Midwinter celebrations will cost $5, helping raise funds for the non-profit organisation. The event will run over 2 nights, Friday and Saturday, with food stalls, lanterns and a range of performers to entertain the crowd. Organisers are also planning to build on last year's popular 3D animation show, which saw St Paul's Cathedral transformed using a video projected onto the church.
That projection will be an artwork in its own right, and they will alternate through the evening, and they'll be on the side of First Church, and it'll be mapped to fit the building. So it's quite a complex process, but very spectacular.
Smith is happy with the new location, which he believes will lend itself to becoming a magical space for families to enjoy while celebrating the positive side of winter.
I think we're really lucky with this site because it's probably the most beautiful site in the middle of Dunedin. It's got big, beautiful trees. It's a wonderful historic building. It's iconic, really.
The Carnival has received money from Enterprise Dunedin to help increase the number of visitors to the city, with the festival coinciding with an All Blacks test in Dunedin. The Carnival will take place on the evenings of the 8th and 9th of July. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Whai Akane. Still to come after the break on this edition of Southern Newsweek. A visitor information centre in Arthur's Pass is still closed after 2 years. And more than a century of weddings are celebrated at a museum in Otago. Tēnā koe, welcome back. 3 rundown Dunedin Theatres could get a makeover if supporters of a combined plan get their way. The group has made a submission to the Dunedin City Council's annual plan with the hopes of eventually securing $17 million from the council purse for their project.
Checking out Dunedin's Playhouse Theatre. Building refurbisher Laurie Forbes and local Repertory Society President Gemma Adams have joined together on a plan for 3 of Dunedin's old theatres. As part of the City Council's annual plan process, they've lodged a submission asking for the Council's help in refurbishing and upgrading the Playhouse, Mayfair and Athenaeum performance venues. Adams believes having all 3 theatres restored will be a major asset for the city.
You've got the Playhouse, it's a little character auditorium, it's really family friendly, it's suited for children and young people. In the centre of town you've got the Athenaeum, which has got that kind of more contemporary, edgy feel, probably suited to more modern works, with more like performance arts studio spaces. And then you've got the Mayfair in the south, which is that larger format, traditional style musical theatre down in the south and at a much bigger size.
The council's already budgeted $17 million for a mid-sized performing arts venue. That pot of money would cover about half of the $38 million it's estimated to cost to renovate the 3 theatres. Community trusts, sponsorships and private funders would be needed to raise the other half. All 3 buildings are more than 100 years old and quite run down, but Laurie Forbes says, in drawing on his experience of refurbishing buildings, they're all worth doing up.
I mean, they're being used at the moment, so that's the evidence that they are quite usable buildings. Structures there, you would peel them back, removing things which aren't up to standard, a bit like peeling an onion until you get some good flesh, and then you start building from there.
Forbes believes it's worth getting behind the enthusiasm of the many volunteers who currently help run the 3 theatres.
As opposed to it being the Glenroy being, say, run by Dunedin Venues or something, this is public passion that drives these things. It's not corporate whatsoever.
Today's submission asked the Dunedin City Council for help with public consultation and more detailed designs around the project. If the plan does get the green light and is able to secure additional funding, all 3 theatres could be fully renovated by 2029. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Residents in Arthur's Pass are frustrated by a lack of action as the Department of Conservation continues to investigate what will happen to the village's former visitor centre and museum. It's been closed for more than 2 years, but locals are hoping to reopen it as a hands-on museum.
The old visitor centre at Arthur's Pass continues to lie empty. The centre was closed to the public in early 2020, a few months before the pandemic began, due to the building being deemed earthquake-prone. A smaller temporary visitors information centre was opened across the road. But the fight continues to save the Alpine Village's historic visitor centre, with Arthur's Pass residents still waiting for the Department of Conservation to make up its mind.
What we'd really like to see is it restored and used again as a visitor centre, community centre, museum.
The Arthur's Pass National Park Visitor Centre was initially opened as a museum in 1959 in what was the South Island's first national park. But shortly after it opened, the former Lands and Survey Department took it over as a combined visitor centre and museum.
And it's been run in conjunction with the community ever since.
The closure in January 2020 was forced when the government decided all public departments had to be up to 100% national building standard.
That was the sort of final nail in the coffin when they said we had to pull out of there. We were operating in there, and with the building's been through a few big earthquakes and survived, but that's now those standards that DOC had to meet, and that's why we had to leave that.
He says DOC estimates it will cost $2 to $3 million to bring the building back up to code. But the community are hopeful they can reopen it as a museum and a conservation hub for the region for a lot less. In Arthur's Pass, the South Today.
Visitors to the Toitu Otago Settlers Museum are getting the opportunity to walk through more than 100 years of weddings in the region. The Big Day exhibition took many months to put together and features a comprehensive audio-visual look back at the outfits and accessories of yesteryear.
For those choosing to get married, it can be one of the greatest days of their lives. Now a new exhibition at Toitu Otago Settlers Museum is showcasing the region's wedding fashions and trends from the last 160 years.
And reflects the really strong holdings that we have of wedding costume, because it's something that people, you know, when you go to all the fuss of getting the wedding dress and the suits and all the rest of it, people tend to not throw them out, they hang on to them. So over the years we've been given a lot of wedding dresses.
Museum curator Sean Brosnahan says they've got so many wedding garments in their collection, any new pieces would have to be very special. The show in the Material Culture Gallery has taken a couple of months to put together, as some of the treasured garments needed to be aired.
Although people care for their wedding dresses, they tend to pack them up tight in old boxes and have them sitting in their cupboard. So when they come into the museum, they tend to be creased, and sometimes they've suffered a bit of damage over time and through the wear on the wedding day itself. So there's an enormous amount of effort went into preparing these for display by our collection team, and we had some expert assistance from conservators at Te Papa and Wellington as well.
Alongside the fabulous wedding frocks, the exhibition also features a collection of films and pictures from people's big days over the years. Among the static pictures are two slideshows, one of more modern weddings and another devoted to a Dunedin wedding dressmaker.
Well, Miss Tom was a dressmaker who lived in Dunedin, and over a very long period from the 1950s to the 1980s, she made hundreds of wedding dresses and bridesmaids' dresses. And it seemed to be the case that all the brides sent her a copy of their wedding photograph, which she collected in a big group. And when she passed away, her niece clearing out the house gave all those photographs to the museum.
Brosnahan says if people look through the slideshow of Miss Tom's creations, they may be able to help identify some of the hundreds of people who she made wedding dresses for. The Big Day is set to be a long-term fixture in Toitu's Material Culture Gallery. In Dunedin, the South Today.
The clipper, brushes and hairspray were out near Christchurch as a collection of cattle were buffed and prepped for a big sale day on the stage.
There were cows in the back garden bar at Taitapu Hotel in Canterbury today, but the queens of the paddock were taking part in a sale held in a uniquely local setting. The party in the park was a novel way by well-known Taitapu stud breeders, the Geddes family, to reach out to buyers. 70 purebred cows, calves and yearlings were on offer, with some fetching over $28,000. To make the show more upmarket and appear more than just a meat market, the cows and calves were all primped and preened prior to the event. They were then paraded before more than 300 local and national buyers and farmers, all relaxing under the sun in the hotel's garden bar. Many more tuned into the spectacle via the online video link to watch and bid on the animals. A team of specialist cow fitters have spent the past few weeks clipping and cleaning the cows and calves, as well as teaching them how to parade in the ring. Australian specialist auctioneer Brian Leslie was brought in to ensure that the hotel stud sale was kept moving along. In Christchurch, the South Today.
Whaiakane, still to come after the break on this edition of Southern Newsweek. A sign promoting Super Rugby Pacific Games is pulled down. And Coast Guard crews over in the Lakes District get a new boat. Tēnā koe, welcome back. After 3 years of advertising Highlanders games and giving away free match tickets, a Dunedin businessman says he's been asked to take his sign down without explanation. Automotive Solutions Māori Hill owner Greg Stevenson Wright took down the sign in question recently.
This sign in Dunedin's Māori Hill has been a noticeable feature for the past 3 years, until late last month, when the manager of Automotive Solutions received a phone call from the Otago Rugby Football Union.
There's been a complaint. If the DCC's asked us to remove it, or they're going to fine us or yourself for having the sign up. There was no real explanation. They didn't give an explanation. So we contacted the DCC and asked them, and they said it was a conveyancing matter, and email us the legislation or the terms or the reasons why, and we've heard nothing back in nearly a week.
A Dunedin City Council spokesperson says the council did not ask the business to take the sign down, saying the Highlanders sought to have the sign removed independently. Stevenson Wright says he asked the council if there was any way he could alter the sign's size or placement, but was told no.
I think it might be the size, but hey, what's the harm of coming and saying, hey look, this sign's too big, can we get it smaller, can we get it reduced, can it be over here instead, can it be on top of the building, rather than right out there close to the front of the sidewalk, but there was none of that, just take it down or fines.
The sign was one of many produced for the Highlanders by Go Media. The company says it's been using corflute signs for the past 8 years, and they were designed to meet the rules of the council plan. The council spokesperson says a $300 infringement fine could have been considered if the sign hadn't been taken down. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Queenstown's next generation Coast Guard rescue boat has been named after a woman who, legend has it, was the first to swim across Lake Whakatipu. Local dignitaries and supporters officially christened the new craft at the Frankton Marina.
Christening Queenstown's next generation rescue boat. The local Coast Guard now has a new vessel which is named Haki Tukura after a woman who legend says was the first person to swim across Lake Whakatipu. Coast Guard President Andy McLeod says he's delighted with the new replacement.
This new vessel is just, it's twice as fast, it's got twice as much room, it's reliable, which really helps.
The craft was formerly used as a chase boat in the America's Cup, and McLeod's impressed with the new technology that's been fitted on board.
The stuff we've got on there now is each person's got a screen and they're twice to 3 times the size that we had, and the capability of scrolling through, and we can send messages to the helm and back to the navigation, and it's just a gigantic leap.
At present, Coast Guard Queenstown has about 20 volunteers, including 2 skippers, but McLeod hopes the new boat will be a draw card to get more volunteers and have another 6 skippers to draw on by Christmas.
Our dream would be to have a roster system that we could have skippers and crew, and give our skippers some rest. At the moment we've got 2, and without them we've got nothing, so they're always on call.
The vessel is one of 26 ray glass craft that have been refitted by Lotto NZ for Coast Guards around the country. In Queenstown, the South Today.
There's more progress at the site for the new Dunedin Hospital projects, with a 14-tonne hammer arriving on site to drive in the piles for the building. The large red tool was custom built especially for this project, with the team digging for a new name.
Forget Bambi, this pile driver could easily be called Thumper. That's just one of the names already suggested for this 14-tonne big red hammer, which has an important job to do as part of the new Dunedin Hospital build.
So it's a pile driving hammer. It goes down into the piles, and we lift it up 3 metres and drop it, which will push the piles into the ground.
The almost 4 metre long lead hammer was made especially for this construction project. Site engineer Todd Sherlow's unsure just how loud the pile driving will be, with the team hoping to drive 1 pile in per day.
So on this site, which is the Wilson car park site, we've got 78 piles. And then on the Cadbury site we've got another 350 odd.
The hammer will be raised about 3 metres into the air before each use, with a heavy weight slamming each pile into the ground. The project's set to start in mid-May and take about 9 months to complete across the 2 sites.
So stage 1, which is the Wilson car parks, between 2 and 3 months. That's what we've got scheduled. And then on the Cadbury site we're looking at about 6 months.
And those behind the project are looking for a new quirky name for the machine, although Sherlow's staying away from the naming game.
Nah, it's just the hammer for me.
Otago Daily Times readers are able to share their ideas for the Chugga 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 Big Red Hammer's name via email or on the ODT's Facebook page. In Dunedin, the South Today.
12 telephones have been installed on Christchurch riverbanks to let people talk their worries away. The art installation is designed to help people's well-being, with the river listening to what they have to say without any judgment.
Hello? Are you there, mate? These phones are part of a short-term art installation by Flourish, the group behind the River of Flowers earthquake project along Christchurch's rivers. The group has installed a dozen colourful telephones, which they're inviting people to use, talk to the river and let their worries float away. The idea was inspired by the story of a grieving man in Japan who set up a phone booth to talk to his missing relatives after the devastating 2011 Japanese tsunami.
The public can come along and pick up the phone and tell the river their worries, or speak to a loved one that they may have lost or that they find it hard to talk to or face to face, and they can just have a wee chat out in nature and let the river float away with all their problems.
The 12 recycled phones and tables have been placed at the regular River of Flowers sites along the Avon and Heathcote rivers, and the new project's been well received.
It's been great so far. We've had lots of people saying that they've actually used it for their purpose, and spoken to people who they wish they could talk to in person.
She believes it's a fun way to do something meaningful, as not everybody has someone to talk to, and says the river will listen without judgment. Unfortunately, so far, 5 of the 12 phones have either been broken or simply disappeared. But Bamford says she has plenty more to replace them with as the exhibition heads into its final week. In Christchurch, the South Today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news and videos from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz. And you can follow Channel 39 on YouTube to catch our news bulletins on demand. Have a great weekend. Nō reira, kia pai te pō, ka kite anō.
Public interest journalism funded through New Zealand On Air.